Great, guys. I think it's time so we can start the session now. So first and foremost, I would like to thank and welcome all of you for joining in today. My name is Kapil Nakra and I'm one of the co-founders of Digital Vidya. Today we have a very interesting session planned for all of you. The topic of today's session is making digital work, 5 easy ways to transform your online marketing results. To lead this session, we have with us Michael Leander. Michael Leander is an award-winning marketing speaker with more than 20 years of experience in digital marketing, CRM, and marketing automation space. In a consulting and training capacity, he helps brands around the world improve customer acquisition, customer retention, and set up programs to reduce churn. Michael just told me that he's now 62. I don't think we at Digital.
No.
Am I wrong, Michael?
Yeah, you're wrong.
Okay. Okay, but that's, I mean, you're more than 20 years experience in this space. That's something that I'm correct about, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Great. And this is actually our 51st webinar that we are conducting at Digital Vidya, and so far I haven't hosted anybody with your kind of experience. So I'm really delighted and excited to have you here with us, and I'm really looking forward to hearing your views about digital marketing. In today's session, Michael will share his experience on how to improve marketing results by staying true to excellence in implementation. In short, what we would be talking about is that the devil lies in the details, and we're going to distinguish that very shortly. So I'll, without taking any further time, I'll now hand over the session to Michael just to set the logistics. In case during the session you have any question, you can just put it down in the question panel, and we'll have the presentation for about 30-35 minutes. And after that, we will have an open Q&A. I'll try to take up all the questions in the chronological order. So that's it from my side. Over to you, Michael. You can start the presentation now.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. Sorry if there's a bit of noise going on here. I'm at my home in Denmark, and the children are off, so it's sometimes a little bit difficult to keep the door shut. I'm very excited about sharing this information with you because I think a lot of us are off track when it comes to understanding what we need to do in order to get better results from the investments we're making in money investments, but perhaps more importantly, the time investments you make in whatever it is that you do that has to do with your online marketing presence. So I prepared quite a few slides. I thought it was 40 minutes, apparently it's only 35, but I'm sure we'll get through it. Some of it is going to be quite fast-paced, and then I'll try to delve into details in other areas. And as it was said, please use the question box, and we'll get to your questions towards the end of this webinar. Now, to sort of get us started, I thought I'd start with a little gimmick, as you could see there. In fact, I think one of the issues that we all have is that we're not paying enough attention to what really matters. And I think if you have a website, a blog, an e-commerce portal, you are very likely leaking. You're leaking traffic away that most of that traffic you can actually do something about. You can do something to ensure that this traffic isn't leaking. Now, a lot of traffic, as you know, is irrelevant, and that's why it's leaking. And that's some of the areas that we are going to be talking about today. Now, let me give you a few pointers first that I think are really important to remember in your day-to-day life. I know I have to look at this slide every single week to remind you about what's really important. And I think whatever you do, it's very important that you always start with your purpose. You don't start in the execution mode. Get your purpose straight, formulate your strategies, then address the tactics, and then comes the execution. And not to forget the measurement. I see it over and over again when I talk to marketers about how they actually spend their time. A lot of us are just going straight for execution. And as a result, that execution very often doesn't meet our own expectations. So what I'm saying is if you're spending 95% of your effort in execution mode, then you're probably wrong. I think it's important that you get yourself a different behavior, that you train yourself to do this properly. You don't have to go through this every single time, but it definitely is important that you allow yourself time to think about what it actually is that you want to accomplish. So what's the purpose and goals, and then how you're going to accomplish that. And in terms of the tactics, what's your approach? I'll give you some examples of that in a moment. So try to keep this in mind because it's really, really helpful. In my 20 years of experience, I've been lucky enough to manage a lot of really, really talented people. And when we started working with these things, they saw a tremendous uptake in terms of their results. It's really just a matter of allowing people a little bit more time to work in the inner part of this circle as opposed to spending most of their time just in the execution part. Now, I'd like to also remind you of good old IDA, attention, interest, desire, action. Is actually still very important. And here's the thing. Most of us spend a lot of time on the top 8, attention. We think about the visuals, we think about all of those things that's going to draw people in. But in my experience, we don't spend enough time on the interest, desire that leads to action. One of the reasons I think is because we often don't focus enough on the action. We are not, so to speak, objective driven enough. And we need to be also because this whole AIDA has been upgraded. This is a new AIDA, and what you'll notice is that engagement suddenly is a component there. I don't know if you want to call it IDEA, but whatever you want to call it, think about it. When that desire is established in today's market, it doesn't necessarily lead to an immediate action. Incubation time has increased across the board, and in India, where I think most of the attendees are from today, obviously things like e-commerce and anything online and in the mobility space is growing at a phenomenal rate. And as it does, what the result of that also is that people will become more confused, they will be more let's say not afraid, might not be the right word, but they will in some sense be afraid to make a decision because they know if they just go one step back to Google, they might be able to search and find a better offer. And that means for marketers like us, what we need to understand is obviously how do we get that attention, interest, and desire, but also what is it that we need to do on page, for example, to get engagement. And we need to be very adamant about what is it that we want people to do, and I'll get back to that in a moment. So in essence, in the new AIDA, the action point, if you look at action from a monetary point of view or as a monetary action, is delayed. And for that reason, other activities need to come into play between that desire and action. So that would explain the engagement part. And if you look at it from a little bit different point of view, I think if you look at your on-page, which is the middle on the right-hand side there, the on-page activities that you need to take into consideration are very different now than they were just a short 5 years ago. We need to earn those dollars. And in today's market, we need to do a whole lot more work in order to qualify to earn the dollar. That's probably not your approach today. That may not be your boss person's approach today. If you're an agency, that may not be your client's approach, because we have a tendency to think that we can go directly from eyeballs to transaction. And maybe in some businesses it is like that once in a while. If you have an incredibly good offer where it's evident it's a good product at a very low price, then obviously it's not that difficult to go from eyeballs to dollars. But for most of us, most of the time, we really have to earn those dollars. So we need to understand what is it that needs to be going on that page, apart from trying to get the transaction right away. What else is it that we need to do to earn that engagement? And obviously, and we won't cover that here today, what do we need to do in terms of nurturing that initial interest and desire that we created from an individual consumer or business buyer? I'll get a little bit back to this as well. I think I would mention that I do have a Twitter account, and I do sometimes post some good stuff there. Not all the time, but sometimes. And the Twitter account is just Michael Leander. That's MichaelLeander. If you say hello to me now or a little bit later, I surely will check you out and of course follow you to see what kind of good stuff you're sharing with the world on Twitter. So I'm going to share some random tidbits, I called it, of information which stems from a methodology that I created actually years ago, which I called the plea. The plea, I won't go into details about all of this. The plea is what I call the perfect lead acquisition system. And it's basically just a process, and each process there are a number of activities that you have to do in order to optimize each step. And then when you do everything, hopefully, if you've done well, you'll have a very efficient system that will attract visitors to a website, a blog, or an e-commerce portal, and also convert and engage them, and so on. So what you're about to see is really little tidbits from here and there, a little bit random, to give you some inspiration that I hope that you'll be able to implement right away. So the 4 things that we will have time to go over today is the power of most wanted responses, understanding friction, and a little bit about how to overcome friction, and then the synergy between your ad messages and your landing pages or your pages on a website to improve results, and then finally, or actually not necessarily finally, in between, we'll talk a little bit about links. It can seem very, very basic. In fact, it is very basic, but most of us get it wrong. So we'll talk about emotional links, and there might be a couple of other tips in the material as well. Hence, the quirky title, 4.5 amazingly simple online marketing components powered by common sense. Do you see how I pretended to be American there? Although I'm not American. I am from Denmark. I'm Danish. So let's move on. Now, as was mentioned in the introduction, I actually really, really believe that the devil is in the detail. Unfortunately, what I see, even with the stuff I do, is that often we don't pay enough attention to the devil in the details, so to speak. And if you want return on marketing investment, I think it would be wise to look more at the details. And some of what I'm about to say will very much sort of be around that particular belief that we need to pay more attention to details. Let me run the poll. The first, I have 2 questions. Let me just see if I can find that again and just ask you a quick question. Now, for some reason, can you do it for me? Put up the poll.
Sure.
It somehow disappeared on my...
So should I put this, how confident are you?
Yes, please do that. Thank you very much. There we have it. How confident are you about your online marketing assets and their ability to meet your objectives at this point in time? So, extremely confident, or suddenly I wonder, not confident at all, or if you refuse to answer, that's also fine. So we'll just give you a few more seconds to make your choice. And I think we can close it now, right? Do I see the result on my side as well?
Sure. Let me know if you can't see. I've shared it with everybody. 0% have said extremely confident, 30% confident, 35% suddenly I wonder, not confident at all 25%, and 10% I refuse to answer.
Okay. Hey, thank you so much for participating. I think that is wonderful. I am very, very happy to see that 1/4 of you are not confident at all. I think that's wonderful. Also good to see that quite a few of you are confident. Here's what I had expected. I didn't quite get the answer that I expected, but that's also great, is that a lot of people would say that they're very confident, because they feel that if they say they're not, then that's sort of an admission that they aren't doing what they're supposed to do. But what I found speaking to marketers in many, many different countries is that usually the people who say they're confident, that means they refer to how things look. Their website looks great, their blog looks great, their mobility presence looks great, their email marketing looks great. But looking good in our space doesn't cut it. And I'll talk a little bit about that as we move along. I do, however, think that I forgot her name now. This the former Miss World, who is Indian, and I think she's an actress as well. I have to admit, she looks good. So I'm sure she would get whatever conversions that she's looking for, whether it's fans or something else. So looking good in Hermes, you're probably familiar with the brand. It's a wonderful brand, one of my favorite brands. Is great in terms of the garments, but if you look at their online presence, I would actually say that they have a very poor online presence. It's all about nonsense. You can go to Hermes .com and check it out and see if you agree with me. And it's very typical for fashion brands that they think they have to appear in a certain way in order to have an online presence. And maybe it's okay if they don't want to sell anything, but since they want to sell something, it's not enough to be creative and look good. There are some other components that need to be in place for them to be effective in terms of engaging people and selling them online. So we have one more poll. If you would also please help answer that poll as well. Would you put it up there?
Yes, here it is. How many hours does it take for you or your agency or your team to create a standard web page?
If you don't know the specific answer, you can just sort of use common sense and guess what you think it might be. So I'll give you a few more seconds and then we'll close the poll and see the result.
Great. So to close the poll now. And here are the results. Less than 1%, 7%, 20%, 1 to 3 hours, 18%, 4 to 7 hours, 8 to 11 hours, 22%, and more than 11 hours, 33%, highest.
That's a very interesting result. Thank you again for sharing that. And so I have a few comments. Again, I've never asked this question before to anyone actually. So I guess I got a little bit of a different answer than what I had expected, which I think is a good thing. Now, most of the time, I think people refer to creating a web page as something that takes somewhere between 2 and 4 hours. Now, I think that's a terrible statement, because I think when you have pages that you want to convert, you really need to nurture and care for these pages the same way you would to put up this picture, a baby. And I saw 33% of you said 11 hours or more, and that's really, really good, because I'm assuming that means that you, your team, your agency, or the brand that you're working with are really taking care that you do things right and that you pay attention to detail on each and every page. So that's very good. Now, what we see most of the time is if you disregard the two brackets there, the top one with defined purpose and decide MWRs, and the lower left one with A/B test, run, traffic to page, and test, look, and feel, and optimize, most of the time we just add content. We might check for an SEO score, and we add a few links, and then off we go, and we forget about the page. We don't do this whole flow. What I've experienced working with brands and also trained agencies in different countries is that the most successful ones, they go very meticulously through this flow and make sure that they pay attention to every single step. They test, especially on the A/B test part, they really test thoroughly to come to some sort of result that will get them maximum, or to come to a situation that will give them a maximum result. So you will can download the slides afterward if you want to have this flow. So let me look at what can happen if you don't pay attention. This is from this morning, Danish time. And I checked for Facebook engagement rate, and as you can see highlighted there, my page, michaelander.me, actually came up as the second best result. And it's been there between 1 and 4 for a very long time. But let me show you why I've been making some dreadful mistakes here. You see, the page looks like this. This is the top of the page. There's a link at the bottom here that you can click on if you just want to see what the entire page looks like. If you go and check out the link there, you'll see that this page is not optimized for anything, because I'm a lazy mofo, right? I should have, when I realized through Google Analytics that this page is drawing a lot of traffic and doing it every single month, I should have looked at this page and said, what could I do to improve this page so that I got better conversion? Conversion for me basically is to get somebody to sign up for a newsletter. And of course, if people would share the page, that's also nice. But I didn't, and I find a lot of marketers don't. We are hallelujahing when we see a lot of traffic to a given page, but what we really should be doing is saying, okay, so since we're having all of this traffic to a given page, what can we do now to optimize? What can we test that will help us get an even better direct result of this particular success? And in fact, I would also say if it's a Google Play, I think we should recognize as well that the traffic coming from Google and treat them in a certain way. I'll get back to that in a moment. So I've done a terrible mistake. I still haven't changed this page. I should have done it a long time ago, but I'm not really well enough organized to do these things. And I think many don't think this way. So one of the problems with this, I think, is many of us are using templates, right? Many of you are probably using a CMS, even if it's WordPress, and everything is sort of in templates. When you when you establish a new page, it's a certain template. When you create a new blog post, it's a certain template. And I think we have to get away with that, not necessarily with all pages, but with the most best performing pages, the pages that draw generic traffic. So my point here is check your pages, see which pages are performing really well, go in and then optimize these pages for better conversion to whatever it is that you want. And we'll come to most wanted responses in a moment, but when it comes to most wanted responses, you really want to be adamant about implementing those most wanted responses there and be very smart about how you treat this particular traffic. Really understand what is that particular person looking for. If somebody's looking for Facebook engagement rate, they're probably looking for ways to improve on Facebook, so maybe that's additional content that should be served on that particular page. So getting into the actual very nitty-gritty material here, the first thing is what is friction and how do you deal with it? Now, if you contact me through Twitter, I can send you a number of links that has to do with studies about friction in marketing. So I'll just do the very, very quick introduction to what I believe should be done about friction. Now, obviously, frictions are things that gets in the way for you to get your result. So what to do about it is remove disturbing elements to get the eye to focus on what matters. It's really important that you understand how the eye reads a web page or an e-commerce product page or a blog page. You really need to study this. Secondly, add a clear hook, because when somebody comes to a page, and I'm sure you've heard this many times before, you have some say 6 seconds, some say 8 seconds, some say 4 seconds. You have very few seconds to attract people in a way that they'll say, okay, this looks interesting. I'll spend a little bit of time to understand what this person wants to tell me or sell me or how they want to educate me. And then sometimes friction is actually about the information that's not there. I'm sure you visited web pages looking for something specific, whether it was opening hours, a telephone number, contact persons, or whatever it may be, and you couldn't find it. That's also friction. So you need to fully understand a given visitor. What are they looking for when they come to a given page? And make sure that you present this information in order to avoid that kind of friction. As I said before, if you want to learn more about these things, you can actually also subscribe to my newsletter. You just click the link that you see there, michaelleander.com/newsletter.html, and sign up. It's free and you can unsubscribe whenever you want. Now, what do you think about this page? It's an ad agency in India. I don't know these people. I just grabbed it. Would you agree with me? There's a lot of friction. It's difficult to understand what do they want me to do. That's one of the most important things that you have to ask yourself for every page. What do you want me to do as a visitor, right? Guide me to make me understand where do you want me to click? What do you want me to read? Which video do you want me to see, right? Here we have red on red in the center. Very bad idea, because now the eye is already confused. The question is, will I actually spend 6 seconds trying to understand what they want me to do? Look at the call to action. Get started today, pick services. Okay, what is that about? I'm not even ready. I just came to the website. I want to know who they are before I decide that I want to get started with them. Are you following? You really have to think these steps through and not be always so focused on what you want to achieve. You have to ask yourself, how can I earn what I want to achieve? What type of information do I need to give somebody before I get that response? Here's another type where you can say, no, there isn't a lot of friction, but I think this is a clear case of understanding what's not there. probably is the friction. Unless you think a great way to make awesome design explains enough to make me do the click. I personally don't believe that it's the best way, but sometimes these very simplistic landing pages, a little bit of information, are actually very dangerous because it requires a lot of decoding, right, for the brain if it's not done in the right way. Let me show you a couple of other examples. But first, a warning. You know, if you search on the internet, you'll find a lot of these, the anatomy of a perfect web page, the anatomy of a perfect landing page. Be careful with that. It's good for inspiration, but for you to become the best you can, you really have to learn this by experimenting yourself. And I'm sure you can add a lot of value even if you don't have 20 years of experience or 10 years of experience or 5 years of experience. Just use common sense. This is easy. Why? Because it's about people. It's understanding people and how you make people tick. And a little bit about how does the eye navigate on a web page, what is the sort of general behavior on a web page. And if you just start taking an interest in these things, read about it, learn as much as you can, you'll be just as good as anybody else as doing this. Now, I think there's a comment box somewhere. Could you just tell me which do you think is good and which is better? These are two webinar pages. One happens to be from Digital Video and the other one from somebody else. And I can't see your comments, so I'm going to see them after. But is it the Digital Video or is it the Makita one that is good or better? Now that you've thought about this for a moment, let me tell you, nobody knows. We don't know until we actually tested them against each other. It's very dangerous just to evaluate a page based on the way it looks. We have to drive some traffic there and test it. But I would say some things that we can learn from these two pages, just two things to not spend too much time on that. On the Digital Video, what in my opinion is extremely good is that it's very easy to register, right? You see the registration button, excuse me, not button, it's a form, is right there. And they're using the orange contrast color to draw attention towards that left side of that page. If we look over to the right and we look at the other webinar, I think what's best about this webinar is that the title and that image drawing people in, which could also be the hook, actually is enough information for me to decide if I want to go further. I hope this makes sense to you, right? So on one, above the fold, we have pretty much all the information we need. We also have most of the information on the left one, but it requires more effort to actually understand what this is about. The text is grayish, and it seems just a little bit more complicated to read it, but of course the form is there, and that's a very, very good thing to, very often to have that front and center. Sometimes we try to make this simple, and there's a lot of people out there talking about short landing pages. It has to be very simple, not too many elements. But remember, it depends on what you're doing. Now, if you go to the page that I mentioned before, the michaelleander.com/newsletter.html, if you actually go to the page, you will see that page is very long. It requires a lot of input for somebody to sign up to the newsletter. And there's a reason for that. And I want you to think about if this could apply to your situation. Think about the law of reciprocity. If somebody really would like something and it's free, they usually don't mind giving you a lot of information in return. And a lot of marketers are not leveraging that opportunity. They're so busy minimizing the amount of input fields when really they should be asking, how do I get quality to sign up to receive my newsletter? And I can tell you that particular landing page has not been changed for many years because it delivers consistently conversion rate of 35%. And if you know this space, you know that 35% is very good. Now, I won't say that it couldn't improve in terms of volume, but it would only improve if we didn't get as much information from people, and if I didn't get the information I'm asking for, I wouldn't know how to target my messages in the newsletter as I send them out. So how do you structure a web page? First of all, as I said earlier, know your purpose. Start with the end in mind. Don't start thinking about, I would like to write this story or that story or have that image or that video. Think about, what do you want to achieve with a particular page? Then define your most wanted responses. I'll take you through that now. And then remove frictions and resistance once you have done the page. That's how I do it anyway. There are probably many ways to do it. Once you've done the whole page, then you ask yourself, where's the friction? Where could there be resistance? Could I place things a little bit differently in order to remove some of that friction as well? So the most wanted response concept is very, very simple. For every page, for every effort, you have a number of most wanted responses. The way I work with it is I say, what is it that I most want people to do? Second most want people to do, and third most want people to do. So I'll make sure that my most want people to do, so that's my MW1, MWR1, is the focus of that page, and then my most wanted response 2 and 3 would be secondary alternatives for the visitor. And for every single page, whether it's a blog post or anything else that I do, I always very, very clearly have my most wanted response in mind, even as I'm writing the stuff that I'm writing. One little input here that I think many make the mistake of having too many things they want people to do. Maybe this is a bit exaggerated. On the left, you see a page that wants people to share something in social media, and there are just so many social media buttons that will take forever and ever for me to decide which one am I going to share in, Twitter, LinkedIn, or something else. On the right-hand side is a better use of most wanted response because there are only 1, 2, 3, 4 social networks, and then the opportunity to have people share this story through email. In fact, I would say for most businesses, probably it would suffice to have 3 of those 4. It all depends on what your purpose is and what you want to achieve. Let me ask you this question. Now, again, I can't see your answer, so just go ahead and use the comment box, please. Do you think it's usually most effective to have a headline on top or below the picture? On top or below the picture. I tried to exemplify this here where you have the headline below the picture on the left side and on top on the right hand side. Now this has to do with the hook. It has to do with what is usually most visible, let's say on a blog post. The first thing you see is typically that top part with an image and a headline. And the answer here is not always, but most of the time, having that headline below the image works better because the image takes an awful lot of attention. So there's a risk if you are looking at that image, you don't actually ever get to see the headline. And usually the headline is very, very important in getting people to understand that this is an important page, an important product, or whatever it may be, and I need to study this page a little bit more. And when we talk about headlines, we have to talk about words as well. So let me give you a little bit of input on words. When you're writing words, headlines, copy, whatever it may be, try to remember something that I don't want to say all marketers, but let's say a huge percentage of marketers don't think about these things in their daily job routines. 70% of people make purchasing decisions to solve problems. Only 30% make decisions to gain something. So that would give you a hint as to what usually is a better way to approach when we speak about a headline. So if you can phrase a headline that talks about how to solve specific problems, that's probably better than to talk about how people can gain more of something. One guy who's made a career of this and who is the most rewarded creative director in the world. His name is Steve Harrison. He's right there in that picture. And I asked him once in London, so how have you been so successful in creating award-winning and very top-performing campaigns? He says, I just focus on which problem the communication has to solve. And I don't mean it that way. When I communicate, I make sure that the recipient are very clear about which problem we are solving for them, right? And he claims that is the whole reason for all of his success. So I think that's very, very important to remember and experiment a little bit. So I promised to talk about emotional links, and it's also very simple. But my experience says that you do need to practice quite a bit in the beginning to sort of get it right consistently. Many of you on your website, you have things like, as in terms of call to actions, like click here, You might have it underlined. That actually makes a huge difference as to whether it's colored or underlined, but I can't tell you what works better. You have to experiment for yourself. Sometimes it would help to add something like click here to see how this helps, because it talks a little bit more about the emotional benefit for a person to see how this helps. But better yet is the example that I've written there. Click here to see how this helps you save money year after year. So by adding some benefit into the link text, it's much more likely that people will actually click it. They get an additional reason for clicking on that link. So try to see on your web pages, on your blog post, and on your e-commerce portal if you're really applying this today, and if you're not, look at how you could get started on applying emotional links, as well as, which I didn't mention before, have benefit-driven headlines. Very important to look if you can get a benefit into the headline, because it usually pulls more people in. When we talk about links in general on websites, try to remember this. If you're working with the most wanted response 1, 2, 3, try to get the most wanted response 2, 3, and there might even be more sometimes, into the link stream that you have. If it's a blog post, typically at the bottom, and then measure what works. If you look at the one at the bottom there that I put in, it's just a snippet from one of my blog posts. The interesting thing is that the link number 2 gets a lot more clicks than the first link. And if you read the 2, I think you'll understand why. These are very, very little details that one sometimes thinks doesn't make a difference, but it actually makes a huge difference. I think the reason the ADMA link works better is because it promises resources. So if people came to that page looking for resources about this and that, they are also very likely to click further to other pages that also offer resources. When we talk about these call to actions, don't forget to experiment with what we traditionally called banners and hyperlinks. If you look at this page, this is the top of a page where you see there are 2 links linking to the same page, which is a newsletter sign up. One is just a hyperlink to the left, and on the right hand side you have the banner. And here's the result on how people are clicking. So 85% click on the text link, but only 15% on the banner link. Don't forget banner blindness. Don't forget the value of distributing text links throughout text as well, because if people are really interested and they really want to know more about that general topic area, they're very likely to click on, whether it's for newsletters, additional information, resources, white papers, product demonstration, and so on. There's one way you can test this. There's a company called AM Institute. I don't know how scientific it actually is. They claim it is, but I haven't checked their background. If you look at 2 headlines like these 2, one is slim down your lead acquisition funnel, the other one is improve your lead acquisition funnel. And ask yourself, which of the 2 do you think would be most effective? So that would have to be tested, right? Because I could only guess. If I see this for the first time, I would just guess. I would guess on improve your lead acquisition funnel, but I might as well be wrong, right? And so would you. So we need to test them. But this particular tool, excuse me, let me just go back. Look at the bottom there. I think you can click on that link to aminstitute.com. Otherwise, you can do it when you download the slides. In this case, if you can use this particular tool to write in headlines and stuff like that, and then it's going to give you what it calls an emotional marketing value score, which is based on how intellectual, empathetic, and spiritual. And that's the interesting part, especially I think in India, that there's a spirituality component to headlines. It's probably true. And as you can see here, the improve your lead acquisition funnel was 40% and the other one only 16%. So apparently improve your lead acquisition funnel is supposedly a much more effective headline. So try to check this tool out, play around with it a little bit, because I think you'll actually learn something. Take a look at this one. This is a last step call to action, also known as the submit button, and just think about which do you think would be more effective, get my thing or get your thing? Get my thing or get your thing? I think some of you will think it doesn't matter, either one will do. Some of you will probably have an explanation as to why my or why your thing. The reality is that 9 out of 10 times get my thing wins. The reason I'm mentioning this is for you to remember it's not about how you read it or how you perceive the information. It's all about the dialogue going on in the head of the person who is reading the text on your web page. They have a dialogue in here, and so you have to ask yourself, how do you communicate to get through to that particular person? So experiment, create a culture of experimentation. Having worked quite a bit in India, I know that that's a bit difficult for many of you to get the boss people to accept that in order to succeed, I often need to fail, and perhaps I need to fail many times before I win really big. But believe me, all successful online marketers are direct marketing driven marketers, and they know that the only way for them to really succeed big time is through experimentation, and that also means failing and losing some money once in a while, but it's all part of the learning process to improve. So I have just 5 minutes because I thought, like I said, it's that it was 40 minutes now. Let me just give you another component here that has to do with words and how you communicate on a web page. I call that a BOA, and a BOA stands for attribute, benefit, objection, answer. The way it works is that essentially you want to create something like this. This is one of the most famous, most coveted ads ever created by David Ogilvy many years ago. And I strongly encourage you to read this ad and learn from it. What it does is basically it talks about all the attributes and benefits, and then it deals with all of the objections at the same time. As you can also see in the headline, at 60 miles an hour, the loudest noise in the new Rolls-Royce comes from the electric clock. That was such a great headline because back then, in the 60s, I think this was, cars were very loud when you were driving, right? If any of you are that old, you might even remember, even in the 70s, cars were very loud, but not this Rolls-Royce, and that clearly came out in this particular headline. So the way you work with the ABOA model is like this. You list all the attributes. For each attribute, you list all the benefits. For each benefit, you try to understand what would be the objection for a customer not to buy into this. And then your text has to answer that. That's in the answer too. So the example here is the attribute is a free webinar. The benefit is learn more about a given topic. And the objection is, no, that's just a sales pitch. Digital video is just a sales pitch. It's not worth my time. And then ask yourself, what would the answer to that be? And obviously the answer to that would have to address, no, it's not a sales pitch. This is meaningful learning with experienced practitioners sharing some of the advice that they have with you. So this takes time to do, but it's very, very important. Especially if you're a product marketer, I'd say you really need to get this done because this is not just an online play. This is something that you can use for your other marketing, your offline marketing as well. I can tell you, I learned this many, many years ago when I started out in direct marketing. It's helped me, although I'm not a copywriter or anything like that, it's really helped me a lot to be a little bit successful in some campaigns. So how do you structure the homepage for maximum success? I have to go over this quite quickly. First of all, stop thinking about one size fits all because it's not working as well as it should. I think what you need to very much understand on your homepage is the whole buying process and the fact that different people are at different stages. So how does that play out? Not like this. This is Citibank America's website homepage a little while ago, where as you can see they're pushing information that only is relevant to existing customers. An extremely dumb approach if they want to acquire new customers. The friction here is very big. It takes a true commitment to find the area that I, as a new potential customer, would need to find to go further. This, however, is from Helsinki Airport. It's an extremely well thought out homepage. You see on the right-hand side that they have sort of 4 areas that I can click on. So they've analyzed why is it that people come to this website. They come because they want information about departure, arrival, transferring, or dropping off or picking up somebody. Very, very smart way to do it. It's not really customized, but it's still a very, very smart way to meet the assumed demands of visitors to this website. So the way you can get started with this is using this formula called FERDIC. FERDIC stands for Find, Understand, Relate, Do, Interact, and Complete. And the way this works is like this. Find is, what are your visitors looking for? So you have to ask them, do some surveys or whatever to understand what they're looking for and why they're looking for this information. Understand what they understand and then relate to them. Do, what would they like to do? Interact, how and when would they like to interact with you? Very important to understand as well. And then what kind of transactions would they like to complete? It's a very, very simple model with very simple questions, but if you manage to answer these questions and then eventually produce good content, I think you will do well. The last thing is, when this comes into play, think about the fact that visitors to a home page or a landing page comes from many different sources. Some are paid traffic sources, others are sort of more generic search visitors, and they come to a certain page. What happens when people come to a page is the first thing they ask themselves, consciously, subconsciously, is, am I in the right place? Did I come in the right place? They look for signals, right? Because if they came from Google, they were searching for something specific. They saw the snippet that made them click, and now they come onto a page and they look for those same signals. If there's no signals found, it's very likely that they just bounce. They go back to Mr. Google or close down the browser, or whatever they do, but they're not going to interact with you. If they find the signals quickly, they're much more likely to want to engage with you because now they have a good experience. Again, okay, I'm in the right place. I can relax. Now I can start trying to understand what it is that you want me to do next, what kind of information you have for me. Let me show you how this plays out if you were advertising. This is a banner advertisement to the left. You see there's some significance in this because of the colors, the logo, there's a person that happens to be me, there's a headline, and there's a little bit of copy. So when we send people from this banner advertisement to the landing page, it's very important that they immediately recognize that they're in the right place. So the landing page could look something like this. And as you can see, it's very clear that the logo is there, the guy, in other words me, is there, the color scheme is more or less the same, and the Zurich, which is part of the headline on the left side, is also very visible on the top of that banner. So that particular landing page performed extremely well, I think, because of this combination. Now, if you go to LinkedIn right now, or Facebook for that matter, and you start clicking on a lot of ads, this is not what you're going to see. Very often, the communication on the landing page is very different from the communication in the advertisement. And if you want to optimize, this is really something to think about. So we came very quickly over a lot of different aspects of your web presence. A lot of it had to do with the details. And I think to be better at what we do, all of us, I think it's important that we spend more time on each individual asset on our website, our blogs, or our e-commerce portal, or for that matter, in our email marketing or our mobility space, before we start chasing all of these new fads, all of the new things that we can do, because new things come up every single, if not every month, then definitely every year. Every year there is some trend going on that some of us think we have to chase. I think you shouldn't be chasing all of those fads until you have your foundation in place. And part of your foundation is some of the aspects that we talked about before. And do remember as well, it's the volume game that many Indian marketers, or in general people from large countries, are playing is not the best game. Start getting some quality into your traffic generation, so don't count the customers you reach, but reach those who count. I think it's very important for us online marketers to be more successful. I apologize that I had to run through this last part so very quickly, but I'm here to answer your questions, and you're also welcome to email me if you have any specific questions that you'd like to ask, or you would like me to point you towards some resources about these topics. So it's just michael@michaelleander.me, or hit me up on Twitter @michaelleander as well. So do we have some...
Yes, Michael. First of all, thanks a lot for providing us all the details. I'm sure it makes sense to a lot of people. There are 3 questions. I'm assuming you'll be able to see them. If you can't, let me know, then I'll read it out for you.
Let me just...
By the time you're looking at it, guys, there are a couple of poll questions I'm launching. The first question is, if you want to subscribe to Michael Leander's newsletter, just mention yes over here, and I'll forward your contact details to Michael, and then he will get you subscribed. So you can just mention yes over here. I'll wait for a few seconds. Michael, you can continue. Okay, do you want me to read out the questions?
I just see a lot of...
It's in the question panel.
Okay, I have I'm just passing by the lost the voice and so on. So Kartik has a question, which is, could you please give an example where someone has used engagement and it made a difference? Note, please let me know if my question is not clear. I think your question is, let me try to guess, Kartik, what you are asking about, and then please correct me if I'm wrong. I think we have to look at engagement in this way. First of all, it differs from B2B and B2C. And secondly, look at engagement as a way, as an alternative way to stay in touch with a potential customer. So if you drive them to a web page, they're not, excuse me, they're not ready to buy or interact with you right now, then try to ask yourself, what would interest them at this point in time? Get them to sign up for an email, get them to download additional information, get them to interact with you in your social media channels. That could make a difference. I think it's the whole question about, as I sometimes joke, about no sex on the first date, right? I know that's not common in India, but where I come from, it's, well, I don't know, because I'm too old for that. So I think it's very much about that dating process, right? Understanding that a lot of customers are not ready to buy right now. They want more information. They want to be educated, just like digital video has been doing for a long time, providing free information for people to understand the quality of what they do, to introduce some of their products as well naturally. That's a very, very good strategy. It takes more time. It's more expensive. It's more time consuming. If you need orders right now, it's not going to happen that way. But if you do it well, and if the components that you're leveraging are relevant to your audience, then in the end, you're going to be much more successful, and you're going to see decline in your customer acquisition cost as well. If that didn't answer your question, please let us know again by posting again.
Kartik has said thanks.
You're very welcome, Kartik. Thanks for asking the question. Ramanujan?
Ramakrishna.
Is it Ramakrishna or Ramanujam?
It's Ramakrishna.
Okay.
Yes, J. Ramakrishna. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm practicing my Indian talents of pronouncing names correctly. I'm really, really sorry. I'm so poor at this. Most wanted response is, in short, what do you most want people to do on a web page? So you create a web page. You have your purpose. You know what you want. Let's say you want people to sign up for a newsletter. That could be your most wanted response number one. Most wanted response number two, if they're not ready, could be to lead them to some additional content that gives them a better impression about your company. So if you look at digital video, they might want me to sign up for news, but I don't know them. I don't know what they're about. I don't know what they offer. So maybe the second choice is to see, if you want to know more about how we help marketers, how we help thousands and thousands of marketers around the world, click here to see our quick five-point summary about digital video, for example. And then on that page, you'll have another most wanted response, which would be, go here to sign up to receive free invitations for webinars and other kind of marketing training. I hope that makes sense. Yes, Nishala, that's a super, super, super relevant question. How frequently should you review web page performance? That is extremely relevant because many of us have so many pages and so little time, right? So I think the way I would do it for my own businesses is I would take top 10 traffic drivers or pages with top 10 pages with most traffic, and I would review them every week. Then I would do something else. I would take the top 5 pages that convert the most to my most wanted response, and I would also review them once a week. But I think this is a question that's so relevant because many of us are so pressed for time. We don't have the resources. And even if we have the resources, often, I'm sorry to say this is true all over the world, often we don't have enough people who really understand this. They need more training in really understanding. So I'm surprised. I did my first project in online 1995, 1996. We launched the first e-commerce portal in Europe. And I'm telling you, we haven't really come far in terms of really understanding what makes a difference when we are communicating online and trying to attract people. So I think, unfortunately, the real answer is it really depends on your resources. But don't try to review all your pages. Try to sort of focus on which pages you believe are most relevant for you, and then set it into system. And by the way, if you're working for an agency, or either if you're working for an agency or if you're a client who have an agency help, I would also force the two parties, the agency and the client, to get in that meeting, whether it's a meeting like this online, once a week, and talk about ideas. How can we improve? What are the trends we are seeing? Because that type of juice is not just juice, baby. It's like awesome juice, where you can get some awesome ideas to a few changes that doesn't cost a lot of money or time that you can do, and then a week later you'll know the result. Love Mishra. I love you too, Mishra, but I don't understand the question. You just said Marquito. So we have another question here. Are you saying that landing page designed to follow the same principles of print advertising is defined by Ogilvy, picture, heading, subtext, body copy? I think the question is if that still works. And Ramakrishna, I'm so happy you asked that question, because I've got something for you. We're a number of people, including David's disciples, if I can call them that, like Steve, whom we saw before as one of them. Drayton Bird, look him up. I'll put it here. Drayton Bird. We are all laughing about all of this online because people are trying to reinvent the wheel. They actually think communication online is new. Come on now, it's not new. The principles are the same. It's about people. It's just a different channel. So yes, I completely agree with you. What Ogilvy and others defined so many years ago very much still applies. Whether it's on desktop or in the mobility space, it's still about attracting people, giving them the message, again, the interest, desire, and getting them to act. Understand what the friction is. Why is it that they are not reacting right now? How much more education do they need before they're ready? Completely wonderful, wonderful question. I didn't expect that, because most people who haven't been in this for 20 years, they think it's all new. It just came like 10 years ago. So it's not like that. Study direct marketing and find books. I can call you a list of books.
Great. Okay. Michael, while you're taking the second question, I'm launching, guys, this second poll question. If you're interested in taking any formal course in digital marketing, just mention yes over here. Michael, please continue.
Saurabh said, best one so far, Kapil, Michael rocks. Well, thank you very much. I wish there would be time for more interaction. Okay, so here's a very good question as well. Oh, you guys are really good at these questions. It's not some dumb stuff. Nishala, you ask a very good question here. What emotions should you focus on? The most compelling sides, which I recall, make me sad. Oh, sorry to hear that. Give me hope or dreams. Is that universally right? I think it is. I'm not sure about the sad part, unless you're selling some sort of stuff that will make people happy again. But I think most of the time it's about the dream or hope, as you said. We talked about 70% of people are focusing on fixing problems as opposed to gaining something. And I think that's the emotion. I think there's another emotion as well, Nishala, which we tend to forget. That's trust. I think trust, it has something to do with emotion, doesn't it? We are not going to be all hyped up about digital video if we don't trust them. So the question for many of us on our web pages is, what do we need to tell in order to get people to trust us? Let's say that you didn't know about me, Michael Leander. Of course, I have a website, and there I have some information about whom I am. But honestly, I don't have all of my credentials there. And I think if I had, actually, I'm a knight of the DMA, the DMAI, the Direct Marketing Association India, right? I should put that there. That would be something like a knight in shining armor or whatever, or that I'm the past president of FEDMA and stuff like that. So the trust communication is also, I think, a very good aspect. But other than that, I think you're absolutely right. You answered the question yourself, Nishala, and thank you very much for that. Dreams and hope, and try not to make people sad. So another question from Manika. there are times when we try to access a website and the page access is closed till the time we key in our personal details such as name, email ID, and so on. Is this a good approach? Personally, I find it an intrusive way to take customer details. Another very, very, very relevant question. Thank you so much for asking that. I think it depends on that law of reciprocity. So you find it intrusive. You find it maybe you don't understand why they want this information. But maybe the person who's asking you to do that feel that what they have is so valuable that most people would actually fill in their name and details. I would say this is something you have to test with whatever it is that you are offering and with your specific audience. Just test it by having the prerequisite up front. In other words, put in your information and then go to the next page and get whatever it is, and then do the reverse as well. Provide the information without inputting any detail, and then in the next step, try to get people to sign up for whatever it is, like whether it's an email or such. I hope that answered your question. Those questions actually should be given an hour or two just to answer those. Ajay Agarwal? Yeah. Is that the Ajay Agarwal that I think it is?
Yeah, it's Ajay Agarwal.
Yeah, it could be. If you are the Ajay that I think you are, then hello Ajay, good to have you here. What are the specific checkpoints to review homepage and how frequent it should be? So before we talked about pages specifically, and we talked about weekly, but I think that would apply to all of the homepage as well if you're sort of a normal company. If you're an e-commerce company, I would say we're talking daily. And whenever you're running paid campaigns, even if you're like just an average company, not an e-commerce company, then whenever you're running daily, not daily, whenever you're running paid campaigns, you should also be reviewing the traffic and the results daily. But if we talk about an overhaul of the homepage, here's something interesting. Everybody's busy changing the design of their homepages right now to this more stylish kind of look. But it's very interesting to see, will that make a difference? I think often it doesn't. Keep in mind that ugly very often sells. And that's not a joke, actually. That's knowledge we have from research and studies and tests done in direct marketing. So I'm not sure I answered your question, but if it comes to the results part, I think I did. But when it comes to, if you mean review as in redesign or considering redesign, I think that very, very much depends on which industry you're in, what your competitors are doing, and so on. By the way, obviously responsive right now, also for Indian markets or Bangladesh, Pakistan, China, and so on, I think that's a must-have now, that your website, your landing pages, and so on looks good on mobility devices. I don't think we can push that forward, that investment forward any longer. So, Nishala, who should be involved in these reviews? I mean, what internal teams should be part of this marketing sales? Well, I think first of all it should be driven by marketing and people who understand communication. But your input here about maybe inviting sales in, I think is a very, very good input. Sales can often tell you, if you talk about the ABOA model, the objections from customers, the sales can give you a lot of information about why people don't want to buy this and that, what's wrong with the product, what does the competitors do that's better than us, and so on. So again, to answer short, most of the time marketing agencies, freelancers, whatever you do, and once in a while try to get somebody from sales, maybe somebody from product, or somewhere completely different in your business to help you. So Rinkesh, from various analytics parameters, what we should really focus on details might make us lose the focus. I tend to disagree with you. But I do agree with you on one thing, Rinkesh, which is that if you have a lot of pages or maybe even a lot of websites, a lot of different activities, it can be quite time-consuming to sort of monitor all of these things. So that's why I think we need to get back to, you know, the old 80-20 rule, that 20% of the pages, or probably more, deliver 80% of the results, right? So if you look at it from that perspective, this is all of what you're doing. But when it comes to these reviews and understanding how to improve, you narrow that down to the few that really, really matters. I hope that answered your question. Yeah. So what does the person who asked the best question of the day get? I can answer that question.
I think they've already
no,
given
no,
subscription to me, Michael Leander's newsletter.
Oh yeah, yeah, and that's worth a whole lot actually. No, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what. Hold on. Here's what I'm gonna do. But you're gonna have to give me 10, 15 minutes after we close the webinar. I'm going to give you this Drayton Bird's book. Okay, it's the best-selling direct marketing, digital marketing book for so many years in so many languages. And if I'm not mistaken, this might actually be signed by Drayton Bird. Oh my goodness. Wow. This is signed by Drayton Bird himself. How's that for a present for the best question? You can tweet this if you want. So I will be in India in November. So I will bring this. I will hand it over to you, to Digital Vidya, so that you can send it to the winner that we will pick after the webinar. Okay?
Our pleasure. Yeah.
Manika has another question. Talking specifically about luxury products, do the basics change? Keeping in mind these brands have to maintain the level of exclusivity. Very, very good point. The presentation of the products obviously has to take into account the positioning of that particular brand, but when it comes to getting people to react, I mentioned the Hermès example before, the principles are the same. So maybe it's not as much in your face, maybe it's a little bit more subtle, maybe the buttons are designed in a different way, maybe the buttons are a little bit bigger, maybe there are no buttons, maybe it's only text links in a special font that sort of suits that particular expression that this brand has. But other than that, Manika, I think that it is it's all the same. It's all about people. And you know what? I'm actually wearing Hermès, and like I said before, it is one of my favorite brands. And I'm so appalled. Try to go to their website. I mean, you know, designers sometimes think that they can just design and we're all just going to spend 15 minutes extra to find anything on their website. It doesn't work like that. Competition is too tough. So I'll go to some other brand. If they can't sort of wow me using that AIDA formula and make sure that I quickly can get to do what I want to do on their websites. So that is, I think that's it for the questions that we have time for. We spent a little bit longer than we had anticipated.
Yeah, that's it, yes. And at this point, really want to thank you, Michael, for a really, really great session, very engaging, and you really respond to all the queries. And I'm sure personally I've got a lot of value out of this session, just not about awareness. There's a lot more to digital marketing we need to focus on, and we got a lot of pointers to what work needs to be done on my website. Thanks a lot for that. And I hope to everyone else also it's valuable. So thank you. Thanks a lot for taking your time out, and thank you everybody for taking time out. We've already exceeded by 8 minutes, so I hope you will join us in the next webinar as well. Michael, that's it from my side, unless you want to say something.
No, I just want to thank you so much for having me and wishing you a great weekend ahead.
Same to you. Thanks a lot, guys. The session is closed. Thanks a lot.